Okay, now for homework assignment 1.01 number 2, which should be questions 11 to 20 from IXL grade 11 skill M1. So what is the equation of the horizontal asymptote? Again, the horizontal asymptote is the horizontal line the graph never crosses. So that will have a y equals form. In this case, it's y equals -3. Now here we don't have a graph to support us. We have to produce our own graph. So what are the equations of the horizontal and vertical asymptotes of y equals 1 over x? So one solution is to simply graph it. The other solution is to recognize the vertical asymptotes will be the non-permissible values, or as IXL calls them, the excluded values. That's where our denominator equals 0. So the vertical asymptote will be at x equals 0, because here when x is 0, that's when you divide by 0. As for the horizontal asymptote, that is going to be the value that this graph approaches when x gets very, very large. In this case, 1 over x just goes to 0. So the horizontal asymptote is also y equals 0. Here, the excluded value, the non-permissible value, when would you be dividing by 0? That is when x plus 5 equals 0, so that must be when x equals -5. Remember, the excluded values are exclusively about the x and never about the y. So this is a repeat question that happens sometimes. We got that 2 questions ago. One of the drawbacks of using a completely randomized database. Here, this excluded value, when does this denominator equal 0? That is when x equals -3. And what is the equation of the horizontal asymptote? So what value will y approach as x gets larger and larger and larger? Well, as x goes to 1 million or 100 million or into the billions, as x approaches infinity, this first fraction will go to 0. So the value will just be this constant, y equals 7. And the vertical asymptote here is where x equals, or the denominator equals 0. So that is where x equals -9, because it takes -9 plus 9 to divide by 0 in this equation. The horizontal asymptote, as x goes to infinity, this graph, or this fraction, goes to 0. We are left with y equals 7. The equation of the vertical asymptote here, the vertical asymptote is always at our excluded or non-permissible value of x. That is where we divide by 0. In this case, that is where x equals 2. All right, we are just entering the challenge zone with 19 questions answered. So one more. What is the excluded value for y equals 1 over x minus 3? That's where the denominator equals 0. So that's where x equals 3. So with that, we have answered 20 questions. That satisfies the requirements for homework assignment 1.01 number 2. We will continue this till 30 questions or skill mastery when we do homework assignment 1.01 number 3.